Support water for all. Donate today. Call us now 0300 3030 777 or visit us on minhajwelfare.org.
The Colony Restaurant open.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. You are listening to Barrister Tahir Ashraf on Revive FM. You are listening to Barrister Tahir Ashraf presenting Real Talk on Revive FM. Today's topic, as I explained last week, is going to be the 2019 European Parliamentary election results. We are talking about the qualities of leaders and leadership. We are talking about what happened, what is going to be happening, what sort of skills are needed from leaders of today, what is missing. Lots of people think there is a great deal that is missing. Many will say there isn't as much missing. That is the topic of today's discussion. You're listening to me, Barrister Tahir Ashraf, presenting Real Talk on Revive FM. The studio number to call in is 0333 444 0940. The text-only number is 07851 391 365. We are on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, Mixlr and TuneIn. You can also find us online at revivefm.co.uk. So, let's get this show on the road. Well, we all have seen, hopefully, the results of the European elections that took place, the European Parliamentary elections. The results of that, everybody has seen, or if they haven't, I'll tell you what they were. Or certainly the main parties, the main two parties, i.e. the Conservative Party and Labour, the third party being the Liberal Democrats. A lot of change happened. A lot of things changed. Whilst Labour and the Conservatives were deemed to be the main parties, are the main parties in British politics, they certainly haven't been the main gainers throughout the European parliamentary elections in 2019. Why? Well, because of the results. And the results have been that the Brexit Party, which is Nigel Farage's party, got over 30% of the voting share. Nigel Farage, of course, said that all that we are trying to achieve is a Brexit, and as I understand the position to be, a no-deal Brexit. That is what he stands for. And Lib Dems, on the other hand, got almost 20% of the vote. The Liberal Democrats got almost 20% of the vote. Why? Well, they were very clear in their stance. They were very clear on their message. That message, of course, being oppose Brexit. Stop Brexit. That's what their message is. Now, what's interesting to note here is, of course, that Labour, on the other hand, which is the main party in opposition, got a little over 13%, just over 13% of the vote, whilst they had thought that they'd probably do far better. What's strange is that there is still no clear, cogent information as to where the Labour Party stands. Of course, the Conservative Party has not fared well at all, and to say they have fared well is an understatement. But be that as it may, scoring a little over 9% of the vote. Of course, that can be seen in the parliamentary position because the Prime Minister, Theresa May, resigned effectively the following day, with the resignation to have taken effect as of the 7th of June. And thereafter, Theresa May will continue to be the Prime Minister. until a leader is elected or selected from within the Conservative Party to become the next Prime Minister. What's interesting also is that all the current leadership candidates have their own views on where they stand with Brexit. One of the most prominent of which is Boris Johnson, who has come out openly and said that he supports a no-deal Brexit scenario. Many of the others, he too is mindful and hopeful that he will be able to negotiate and renegotiate a deal, a Brexit deal, with Europe. And I've got here in front of me an article that was published in The Guardian as I was doing my research preparing for this show, that Boris Johnson himself is in court, or at that point in time was going to be summoned to court, or there was going to be a potential summon into court. And of course, the developments over the course of the last week have been such that he now is going to be summoned before a court. Why? Because the court has probably decided that based on the information that the court has, there is enough information there to say that a case needs to be answered. So, the interesting point is that someone has brought this action, and I'm not going to be mentioning the names of the people who have, although it's out in the papers in any event. So, the case has been brought against Boris Johnson so that the UK courts can decide whether or not Boris Johnson had lied in respect of the claim that the UK sends £350 million each week to the EU. The question then, obviously the court will be grappling with, is how much they send, but how much of the 350 actually comes back into the UK and goes into other projects and other expenditure. Against that, I've talked about whether any other future potential Prime Minister from the United Kingdom, once Theresa May steps down, is actually going to be able to renegotiate any kind of a deal, because President Juncker, the EU President Juncker, has already said that there will be no Brexit renegotiation. And he has openly said, I was crystal clear. But against that, several Tory contenders, Conservative Party, potential leaders, have said that they want to renegotiate the deal. Are they going to be able to do that? Is that realistic? Is it viable? Or is this, again, posturing? Some people might say it is going to be possible. Some people will say it isn't. Be that as it may, during the course of this last week, other news has caught my eye, which is around this entire Brexit bubble, as it were. And that is that a New York Times article has published that Nigel Farage is the most dangerous man in Britain. They have said he is the most dangerous man in Britain. Do you agree with that? Do you disagree with that? What are your thoughts? You're listening to Barrister Tahir Ashraf, presenting Real Talk on Revive FM. The studio number to call in is 0333 444 0940. Tell me whether you agree. Tell me whether you disagree. Tell me what your thoughts are. Why are we getting the wrong leaders? Why do we have leaders who the New York Times has said is one of the most dangerous men in Britain? Is that right? Is that wrong? Tell me what your thoughts are. The text only number is 07851 391 365. We are live. We are on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, Mixler and TuneIn. You can also catch us online at revivefm.co.uk. Let us have your thoughts on whether you think leadership in this day and age, whether these leaders, the politicians of today, need to change, and if so, how you think they need to change. And on the topic of change and the change in leadership styles, as opposed to just rhetoric, what we have today, I have with me as a studio guest, joining me today is a gentleman by the name of Mr. Carl Watts. Carl, you're a live performance coach. Welcome to the studio.
Thanks for having me, Tahir.
Absolute pleasure. Carl, you're a live performance coach and you deal with and help people to, you can explain that in your own words. Nigel Farage, the most dangerous man in Britain, says the New York Times. What do you say to that?
Well, just to give an insight into, as you were just saying there, what I do when I work with either individuals or teams, is I help people maximise their performance, whether at work or at home or in their personal lives. So it's all about helping them to make good decisions which help them perform as well as they can. Mm-hmm. So what I tend to do is I tend to look at a set of skills that I teach. I have a set of 6 skills or life skills that I help to help people become more aware of, because a lot of people will be unaware that they are particularly good at certain skills and potentially not so good at certain other skills, or maybe don't even have certain other skills. So my job, if you like, is to make people aware of these skills, where they're good at them, and actually how and which areas they can actually improve on.
Okay, so, well, looking at the skill set of Nigel Farage, he seems to be a very good communicator. Would you agree with that?
I think from a political perspective, obviously it's one of the key attributes, if you like. However, potentially how you communicate is a key skill that potentially most people do not know too much about, and so on.
So I've got these articles. This one is Boris Johnson, which is obviously the challenge, and I think the world over knows that Boris Johnson has made some political gaffes and whatever else. Whether they are actual gaffes or intentional is another story.
Sure.
But you've got Boris Johnson. I've got another article here which is also The Guardian, and that tells me that Donald Trump is like a 20th century fascist, says Sadiq Khan. Sadiq Khan, as we know, London's mayor, of course, Labour. And you've got that, and you've got Nigel Farage is the most dangerous man in Britain. That's from the New York Times. At the very least, Donald Trump and Nigel Farage, their politics appear to be divisive. They are communicating their message in a divisive way. They are playing on people's fears. Do you think it's right that politicians of the day should be playing on people's fears?
Well, I think when you understand communication skills, one of the key things that you want to be aware of initially is that most of us, especially when we're listening to politicians or people who potentially have a skill set in communication, we don't. So it's very easy for, say myself, if I've not been trained in communication, other people, to actually struggle to communicate what we believe is right, what we think is wrong or right, etc. Whereas then if someone actually has a very compelling message that they can bring over, it actually comes over in a way that actually may just pull at our heartstrings or our understanding. That makes a difference. So the message potentially sometimes may not be a hugely effective message, but actually brought over well, can actually bring an awful lot of people to to either trust in it or believe in it and so on.
Do you mean effective message or a beneficial message? And I would argue there's a difference, because insofar as Trump is concerned, he would say his message is an effective one because it effectively gets him into the White House. It has effectively won him a leadership role. It has given him the, obviously, power of the presidency of the United States of America. Nigel Farage, whose Brexit party, if we just focus on that for the moment, obviously Farage is linked with and associated with UK Independence Party, UKIP, which obviously rose almost 20 odd years ago. It rose as a single issue party at the time, i.e. Britain should not, obviously I can be corrected if that is wrong, Britain should not join the euro insofar as the currency is concerned, because the conditions weren't right and we never should, and we should pull out, and so on and so forth. But insofar as effectiveness of his message is concerned, Nigel Farage's message as leader of the Brexit party has been, let's get out and no deal. Let's get out ASAP on a no deal, and thereafter we can try to negotiate. So he has communicated that message very effectively to have won over 30% and almost, well, it's 30.8, so almost 31%, over 30% of the vote to his benefit and to the benefit of his MEPs, because they are the ones who are going to go to Europe, the European Parliament, and be able to draw down the salaries.
Well, I think...
Which actually doesn't benefit Joe Bloggs on the street. It does not benefit British society. It does not benefit 30% of those people who voted for him. So he delivered his message effectively, got the result that he wanted, but actually doesn't really benefit the British public in any way.
Well, I think you have to look at the bigger picture with this as well, in regards to, if you look at the other parties as well, what type of message are they bringing over, and how are they bringing that message over? So if you have the country as a whole listening to a variety of different messages, maybe they don't have certain clarity, maybe they're changing their mind, maybe their communication abilities haven't been as effective as possible, there's going to be an element of someone who has an understanding of communication, an understanding of maybe the problem that's out there, that has been able to communicate in a way that actually has drawn the country, or a certain section, and quite a big percentage of the country, to go, actually, I've sort of had enough of listening, or not quite understanding what's being said, etc. I'm quite confused, actually, as to what the different scenarios are, what they believe in, what the different parties are split, etc. So potentially he's understood that to a point and utilised it.
Okay, we're going to go into commercial break, and we'll come back from that and we'll carry on.
Further, well established with over 15 years of experience, Maxwell Estates are specialists in residential sales and lettings. We manage over 200 properties in and around Northwest London, keeping our landlords and tenants updated with all the latest laws and legislations. Based in Edgware, our experienced specialist negotiators always ensure we maximise the full potential of your property. Call us now on 0208 952 0808 for a free no obligation quotation, or visit our website www.maxwellestates.co.uk for further information. Maxwell Estates, the name you can trust.
Did you know that girls like Noura walk an average of 3 miles every day in search of clean water to support their families? Minhaj Welfare Foundation believes you can end the water crisis by building small and large-scale water projects. Your charity is helping improve the lives of communities living in the poorest regions of the world. However, more needs to be done. Support Water for All. Donate today. Call us now, 0300 30 30 777, or visit us on minhajwelfare.org.
The Colony
You're listening to Barrister Tahir Ashraf presenting Real Talk on Revive FM. The studio number to call on is 0333 444 0940. I'm here live with my guest, Carl Watts. Carl is a live performance coach. We're talking about the European election results that took place last week. Those saw the results for which came in over the course of the weekend, as well as on Monday. That showed us that the Brexit Party was the biggest winner. They communicated a clear message: get out, no deal. We've then had the Liberal Democrats who've said stop Brexit, very clear message, almost got 20% of the vote. Labour saw a kicking in the teeth. Didn't communicate that message effectively enough. Greens, they have been up as well. They've gained a great deal. The Conservative Party, the current party in government, is obviously suffering at the moment as well, almost 9%. And Scottish and SNPs have got 3.5%. Now, we were talking earlier, if you're just joining us, we were talking earlier about this New York Times article that I've got. It says Nigel Farage is the most dangerous man in Britain. We've said he has communicated his message rather very effectively, but not to the benefit of the country. I have said that message that Farage has given benefits him, his cronies. It doesn't benefit the British public. Carl, I'm going to bring you in on this. Carl, I think that I would like to hear the views of the people. If you want to call us, you can call us in on the studio number 0333 444 0940 07851 391 365 is the text only number. We're on Facebook Live, we're on YouTube Live, Mixler and TuneIn. You can also catch us on revivefm.co.uk. Carl, his message you say has been effective. Has it been beneficial? Will it be beneficial?
Well, I think to try and understand how someone can bring over a message, whether it's effective or beneficial, I think if I give you an example to again make it real to all the listeners, if you like. So, for instance, when you're teaching someone to communicate effectively, one of the first things you actually want to understand is that actually most of us, and we're talking a very, very high percentage, have no communication skill training. So the first thing we need to understand...
So the ordinary common citizen, most people on the street, unless they're leaders in politicians or leaders in their own field, are unlikely to have, as you say, communication skills.
So you're unlikely to have communication skill training. So to give an insight into that, what I mean by that, well, when you're at home, whether you have a partner, whether you're married, or whether it's with the kids. So if you, ideally, when you are looking to communicate, so let's say your partner comes up and she's very frustrated. So she comes up or he comes up and very frustrated, starts talking to you. So what most people would tend to do is that they would generally then give their opinions. They jump in with opinions and react sometimes quite angry to situations and so on, which obviously won't make the person who's got the problem and wanting to talk want to talk and probably end up in some sort of argument. Mm-hmm. Now,
as indeed has happened in British political system.
British politics all over. Yep. So narrowing it right down to what happens to me, you, and I'm sure most people at home, if we haven't been trained in this type of skill of communication. So the first thing, like I said, is to understand that we haven't been trained. So we are going to say and do things that sometimes just don't make sense. Yeah. Now, once we understand that, the next part is actually to what we call listen and reflect.
Yes.
Yeah? So what we're looking to do is someone starts talking to you, right? So if you were trying this at home, if you struggle to communicate with your partner at home, for instance, if you just listen to what they say and then literally reflect back or mirror back what they're saying, so you're not actually saying anything extra, what you're doing is you are enabling the person who's talking to you to hear what they are saying. What that does is it builds a huge amount of trust between them and you, and it also allows them to hear what they are actually saying, because most people, when they're frustrated or angry, will say things and in the heat of the moment, but by you reflecting, instead of getting swamped into the argument and then putting your penny's worth in, you're actually giving them the opportunity to say, crumbs, actually, yeah, no, that's not what I mean, or no, actually that is what I mean, and then carry on.
But if you look at the current system of politics and where as a nation we are, and not just where we are as a nation, where we are globally, and when I say where we are globally, I mean the state of the globe, the state of international politics, very few people are actually reflecting on the words that are coming out of their mouth, for argument's sake. People like Nigel Farage, I mean, it's interesting that it's the New York Times that have labelled him the most dangerous man in Britain, presumably because of the way in which he presents his politics, and his politics are quite reactionary. So politicians like this, who are in it for themselves, aren't actually benefiting the public. If they are benefiting the public, it's a select few, is it not? Why else would the New York Times write such an article? They are presenting their own message, and if they are reflecting, they're only reflecting it to the same sort of people, not to someone who's a life coach, who's a life performance coach like you. What do you say to that?
Well, I think to understand the skill that I'm explaining there is this. If, again, in the scenario at home initially, because then we can bring it back to Nigel Farage. So in the home environment, to understand how it works, so if you now are able to reflect back to the person, they then actually start to solve problems more efficiently. Right? So then what happens is that you actually build up a much stronger relationship with that person, because they feel heard. They then actually, interesting, as we said before, they actually start to solve problems more effectively, more logically, rather than reacting to scenarios. So let's say most of us out here, because I've been in exactly the same boat, maybe don't have this communication skill and don't know how to potentially articulate, and have been taught maybe over many years, even from a school perspective. If we don't have that skill, when someone comes along, potentially like a Nigel Farage, with a very compelling message that effectively, and we're hearing different communication styles and messages and etc. from perhaps lots of different parties. So there tends to be very little unity. And when someone suddenly shows unity, and sometimes the message might not be the most effective message or the most beneficial message, but the fact that they've shown that type of unity, if it's surrounded by a group that aren't showing it, people will actually go, do you know what, actually I really quite like it, and perhaps sometimes are unaware that that's happening. They do it quite naturally, whereas maybe some of the other viewpoints they prefer, but in reality will be taken more towards where there's more unity, because the communication is easier and better and so on.
But you see, that's the issue, isn't it? There isn't enough unity.
Agreed.
And there isn't enough effective communication of a beneficial message, because many people who remain in this scenario are interested, traditionally have been Labour voters, haven't voted. We've heard Alistair Campbell, who's recently been suspended from the Labour Party because he openly said that he voted for the Lib Dems because of their position being one very clear position: clarity of message, clarity and therefore unity in that message, i.e. we want to stop Brexit. In the absence of a general election happening today, they can't stop Brexit. In the absence of a general election and Nigel Farage's party winning parliamentary majority, he too cannot push forward a no deal, but he is managing to push his brand by saying that everyone else, i.e. the parliamentary MPs, they are the ones who are ineffective. British leadership has been effective, whatever your views on British leadership. And actually the issue is that we haven't got clarity.
Yeah, I think what you're describing is if you like a much deeper problem. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
how do we deal with this deeper problem?
Well, I think the problem we have is that obviously what tends to happen is that we're fighting fires.
Forgive me. Let me take a step back.
Yeah.
You were going to address that what I've effectively identified as a deep. What's your understanding of the deeper problem? Let's deal with that first, and we can deal with what you say.
Okay. So what I feel as if you like the deeper problem is this: is if as a society. Or a culture, or a organisation, or team, whatever it may be. If we haven't been trained in a certain set of skills, logical, practical skills that helps us to make clear decisions, authentic decisions, and so on, it can get very messed up over a period of time. It's a little bit sort of like the global warming effect, if you like, where we've got all the rubbish we don't know what to deal with, so we hide it away, and effectively we end up with all the CO2 gases coming into the atmosphere and causing all sorts of problems. So this doesn't happen overnight, it happens over a long period of time. Mm-hmm. So if as a nation, if you like, or society, there are certain skills we potentially need and would be really helpful to us to maximise our either our life or our choices and whatever we make. Without those skills, we can end up making, doing or saying things that potentially don't make sense sometimes, and escalates. So
I can certainly agree with you on there that politicians of the day are coming up with all sorts that doesn't really make a great deal of sense. And what do you say is therefore the solution to that?
Well, I think helping leaders, to become more aware of perhaps the set of skills. So I train people to have a set of 6 skills. The first one is actually how to control your emotions. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that, it's not so much not feel something, it's actually to understand why people do or don't do the things they do.
I just want to address you on that very quickly, because last week on my show I talked about Theresa May, effective leadership or otherwise, whether or not she showed emotion. The emotion that she did show towards the very end of her speech virtually broke down into tears, and I thought that was actually quite challenging. It was quite tough. I also said on my show last week that it would be very difficult to find a man in a similar set of circumstances, and you probably wouldn't find a man showing that level of emotion and actually crying and being tearful in a leadership role on the world stage. Do you mean that kind of emotion?
No, I think what I'm saying here is when you're put in a situation and you react to that situation, what you're trying to do is put yourself in a position where you don't in essence react how most people would. So if someone says something you don't agree with, for instance, most people generally feel angry, they then potentially react, and then suddenly they feel anxious, and then that leads to probably a bit of guilt. So you end up with this chain reaction of events. But what we're really trying to say here is for someone to control their emotions, by understanding why someone would do something or not do something which doesn't make sense. So for me, when you start to understand behaviour, if if we haven't been trained in some form, over a period of time, we will tend to react to an awful lot of things.
But when you say react, so I'm clear and our listeners are clear from what you've said, you don't mean controlling, react insofar as stopping yourself from crying and being able to show emotion and being overwhelmed is concerned, which to my mind arguably is actually a greater show of strength as a weakness.
Absolutely.
As a society, as British society, we've always lived with and grown up with stiff upper lip. Isn't it time for leaders of today to recognise stiff upper lip isn't working?
Yeah, I think I agree. I think for Theresa May to be so, if you like, authentic, to be real, and it must be, if you really look behind the scenes, you know, it must be incredibly tough to have come into the environment that she has to try and solve the problems that there are, which there are clearly many of. And so, you know, so in a speech like that, again, she's showing how tough it's been. She's being real. And again, I think we, as a society, like to see that. Yeah, we like people to be authentic and real, and to show that they are going through tough times, just like we are. And so part of again, from when I talk about controlling your emotions, again, it's learning not to react, but
in an angry way.
In an angry way, but to understand why someone would do it. So if you now understand the story behind it and take the time to understand it, which is part of training, you're then able to look at that situation in a much more logical way, which then helps you to either solve the problem or make a decision, for instance, what party you vote for or whatever it may be.
So I think it is widely accepted that the Brexit vote has been a reaction as a way of punishing, and media pundits the world over have said that certainly the Conservative Party and Labour have been punished through their inability to get on with Brexit, through their disunity and so on. And that is why the Brexit Party has had the vast majority of the gains. And therefore, do you think that has been, in essence, a direct reaction? Do you think it's been an angry reaction that people have voted with their overwhelming emotions of anger, as opposed to, let's have a think about this carefully, logically, think through the process, should we really be voting for the Brexit Party? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think what you're describing there is what we would describe as the deeper problem. So as a society, generally, we are very reactive. Yep. So someone does or doesn't do something we don't like, or they don't do something that we expect them to, we will react quite angrily normally. However, if we understood why something, because generally most people don't do things on purpose as crazy as they don't sit there the night before and go, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to plan to insult my partner, my wife, my husband tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock. They don't stick it in the diary, stick it on the alarm and go, okay, that's fantastic, that's what I'm going to do. So that's as a very small example.
Well, it's a small example, but if you look at the world of politics today, isn't that exactly what's happening with the rise of the far right? Isn't that exactly what's happening? The far right is playing on the fear of the other.
Yeah, of course. I mean,
Islamophobia, there's anti-Semitism.
Sure.
And these things are rife. I mean, one would have thought that as a society we would have learned the lessons of yesteryears. We would have learnt the lessons from World War II and so on, because the way I see it, and speaking as a brown Brit, my own family came to the UK immediately after the Second World War and settled here. Grandfather came here to help build Britain, worked in the cotton industry. Queen went to then Pakistan, post-partition, in the 60s, and said we'd like to have some manpower. So my father came. Part of the requirements for people being able to come over at the time were that those people whose families had served in the First and the Second World Wars were then able to come. And I'd had this conversation with my own father, and I said, well, Dad, lots of people served in the First and the Second World Wars. Well, why did the floodgates not just open? And my father explained that back in 1964, £700 for a flight ticket was a lot of money, and people simply didn't have that kind of resource to be able to put towards it and come and help build Britain. So the way I see it, the rise of the far right is such now that actually they are playing on the fear of the other. They are playing on issues such as immigration and saying blatantly that they are anti-immigration. They are pointing to an era which is that of empire, forgetting that we won the Second World War through the sacrifices also of those people who are now within the Commonwealth, and saying that somehow we are still going to be better off in Brexit, and as a result we should just be getting out and living some kind of nostalgia. This isn't about Brexit. This is about the rise of the far right, who think that the way in which they are communicating their message is the right way, because they are, as you put it, putting in their diaries that tomorrow or the following day or the following week they are going to deliver XYZ speech and say that this is how things should be and that all migrants should be out. So there are some quite hatred-filled people out there. What do you say to that?
Well, I think there's if you like, there's two elements to it. One is, as a whole, the vast majority of people react and don't do the things they do or say on purpose. They don't. There's a reactive element to it because of certain skills they've not trained. Now, if someone is, or an organisation is, if you like, planning something, and they've particularly planned it over a long period of time and so on, the interesting thing there is again, from a, if you like, from a life skill perspective, if you took a time machine back over a period of time, you wonder at what point did that organisational message start to filter into, for instance, this individual, whoever it may be. And there's generally there's a time where you can go back to and go, I wouldn't imagine this person, this organisation sat down and went, in 10 years, in 20 years, we are going to believe in this, we are going to do this, we are... So, for instance, I'll give you another example. There won't be an alcoholic, for instance, who sat down 5 years ago and went, honey, I've got a fantastic idea. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try and stress myself out because I haven't got certain skills. Over a period of time, what I'm going to do is then gradually drink a little bit more this week, and then next month I'll drink a bit more. And then what I'm hoping, in about 3 or 4 or 5 years' time, I've got to a point where I'm secretly drinking, and then effectively I'm really hoping I get to join AA. It's one of my biggest dreams.
Yeah. Okay, so if I'm getting right, if I'm getting the vibe of your message, what you're saying is nobody from the word go plans or sets out to become negative in future. There is a reaction.
Correct.
I think that's what you're ultimately getting to, that there is a reaction. We're going to go to a short commercial break, and after that we'll continue on our discussion, and let's take it from there.
Through Minhaj Welfare Foundation, your giving saves lives. Your support has provided more than 3 million people with access to clean and safe water. Emergency relief in natural disaster and crisis-affected areas around the world. Supported orphans and needy children with a better future. This year, your help can do more. Donate your zakat, sadaqah, and charitable donations to any of your chosen projects. Call us now, 0300 3030 777, or visit us on minhajwelfare.org.
Manjaro's Restaurant Ilford, the ultimate dining experience like no other. Ramadan special offer iftar meal for just £10. Try our signature parmesan or our exclusive chicken supreme. Our cuisine is based on a blend of African and Caribbean flavors. Don't worry about missing your salah, as we have a dedicated space available. Manjaro's Restaurant Ilford, 213 Ilford Lane, Ilford. Telephone 0208 514 4455.
Thinking about selling or letting your home? With Maxwell Estates, you don't need to look any further. Well established with over 15 years of experience, Maxwell Estates are specialists in residential sales and lettings. We manage over 200 properties in and around northwest London, keeping our landlords and tenants updated with all the latest laws and legislations. Based in Edgware, our experienced specialist negotiators always ensure we maximize the full potential of your property. Call us now on 0208 952 0808 for a free no obligation quotation, or visit our website www.maxwellestates.co.uk for further information. Maxwell Estates, the name you can trust.
Did you know that
Welcome back if you've just joined us. You're listening to Barrister Tahir Ashraf presenting Real Talk on Revive FM. The studio number is 0333 444 0940. We're talking about leadership, effective leadership in light of the European parliamentary elections that took place and what is going on in the world of politics today. Do leaders need to be better, and if so, what are the solutions? Are they communicating their messages effectively, but for the benefit of the public? People like Nigel Farage and Donald Trump arguably are communicating their messages effectively. What are the other parties doing? Are they communicating their message effectively enough or not? How do you feel? Please call in. Tell us what you think. Tell us what your views are. We have just a few more minutes left on the show. The studio number to call is 0333 444 0940. I have with me my guest, Carl Watts, who is a life performance coach. Carl, effective, but for the benefit. We've talked about clarity. Is the message clear? You've said it's clear enough, but it's not effective enough. We've said the message needs to be a better message for the benefit of the people. People don't do negative. We've got a call coming in. Let's take the call. Hello, this is Tahir Ashraf on Revive FM. Who's calling?
It's Michael Armstrong.
Oh, hello, Michael. How are you? Michael, I
Hello.
can hear you. Yes, you're on air. Michael, we're on air.
Very well, thank you.
Good, good. Thank you for calling. You have a Welsh accent. I can detect that. Where are you today? Are you calling us from Wales?
I'm actually based in Cardiff.
Oh, wonderful. How lovely. Michael, we're talking about effective leadership and what is going on with the leaders of today. What do you think is wrong with the political leaders of Britain today?
Well, I think the problem with politics today is that the politicians don't actually speak the common language and the language of the common people. They don't answer questions when they're asked them. They avoid questions. They have clever tactics to not engage and to, pussyfoot around, telling people what they really feel. And I think that creates animosity between the voters and people who are sort of disillusioned then, because nobody's really speaking for them and sort of addressing the things they're interested in.
Well, Nigel Farage has secured over 30% of the vote in the European parliamentary elections. Do you think he is actually talking the language of the public? Do you think he's actually doing anything for the real benefit of the country?
Well, I think Nigel Farage is the only politician for a long time probably does have the common touch, does have a common language, and therefore is speaking a language that some people will agree with. Whether you agree with his policies or not, he has a touch.
Well, he hasn't got a policy,
time and
has
time
he?
again.
Michael, he hasn't
Well,
got a
he's
policy,
got-
has he? He didn't have he doesn't have a manifesto. The papers have written that his party, the Brexit Party, was not even in existence 6 months ago. There hasn't been a manifesto that I have seen, that hasn't come to my attention. There hasn't been a manifesto for the European stance, European elections. All he says is no deal, if indeed he says that at all. And actually, how is that for the benefit of the British public? That's what I'm interested in. Is he actually acting in the benefit of, for the benefit of the British public?
At the moment, he's the people who vote for him and agree with him feel that he's acting in their interest because they all voted for Brexit. Brexit hasn't happened, and he's the one saying, "Well, we'll make it happen. So we will do what the other politicians can't do." Basically,
but Michael, he can't act for the benefit of the public, can he? And I wonder what Carl has to say on it, because all he's doing, and if I may be so bold, is in his own benefit, because he can't deliver Brexit. He's not in Parliament.
No, but he's sort of trying to make the people who can make a decision. He's sort of making them sit up and say, well, okay, then if all the people are going to listen to Nigel Farage and they're going to back his party, then we maybe need to pull our fingers out and actually become clear on the decision of whether we're for it or against it, because the Conservatives and the Labour Party, really, they're so split that nobody knows whether to vote them or not, because they don't know actually what's going to be the end result.
Can I just mention, Michael, very nice to meet you, it's Carl here. So
Hi, Carl.
if I hear what you're saying, because obviously most politicians, they're not speaking, if you like, the common language to, if you like, the common people. What Nigel seems to be able to do very well is he's got that common touch and the language and the ability to communicate and bring over a message. And what we were talking about earlier in the show as well is understanding the if you like, the communication skills side of things. Is sometimes a message may not even be the most beneficial or the most effective, but because of someone's ability to bring it over in a certain way, it actually is very appealing to us, to go, well, actually this makes sense. Like as you've said, to see certain parties split in so many different ways, it's very difficult to stand there and go, okay, I truly believe in what the message is. Is that fair? What you were saying?
Yeah,
Michael,
I think that's fair. I think.
I'm also going to add a little something, and that is that the Lib Dems gave a very clear message, and that was, we want to stop Brexit. And they got almost 20%, virtually 20% of the vote. The only thing that's not clear is the Labour stance. Labour have not been clear as to whether the party line is going to be in or out of Europe, a second referendum or otherwise. Well, actually, they've been clear on one thing, and that is that, certainly the leadership, Jeremy Corbyn, has been clear that he is going to support Brexit. But many people are saying, some people are saying he's a Eurosceptic, other people are saying actually he's a Remainer who finds himself in a sticky position. So there's no real clarity on where the Labour Party stands, and that is where it is split. The vast majority of the Tory party is for a Brexit, but an orderly Brexit, as opposed to a no-deal Brexit. And isn't it the case that the frustration of the public is as a direct consequence of not being able to deliver that, and that Farage is only communicating that frustration?
Yes. I think Farage is showing leadership skills and leadership quality, and I don't think Theresa May had any leadership skills or leadership quality, and I don't think Jeremy Corbyn has either.
Well, Theresa May Theresa May is not really going to be in the scene very much longer. as you know.
No, but if she had leadership qualities, she would have been able to get more people and her whole party behind her doing deals and getting things done. But she wasn't. She's not an out leader with leadership abilities and qualities. She couldn't get nobody to follow her, and ultimately somebody like Tony Blair, when he came into power, everybody followed him because he was a leader, he was a statesman.
So let me ask you this:
what happened after, but you can't doubt his leadership abilities.
So let me ask you this: what do you think is the problem then? How do you think? What do you think is the problem with the leaders of today? Is it that they need a different level of training?
I think really it's the career politician thing. I think when you go to university to become a leader, you're not actually learning the day-to-day practical skills that you would do in a real job, in a real leadership role. And so you learn the benefits and the problems of the past. You don't actually really lead. You learn leadership skills on the job. That's the only way you can really learn how to deal with people, how to communicate people, how to bring people along with you, how to sort of pander to their needs, how to work with them, really. And I think most of the political leaders, if that's what you call them, most of those people, they haven't actually been in roles of leadership. They get thrust into the limelight, into the leadership role, and they don't really know what they're doing. So like what Carl was saying earlier, they haven't got the skills to actually get through the problems that happen. So that's why the country ends up in a mess.
And I think, Michael, very quickly, I think the way you've articulated that is very, very effective. To just understand, actually, why certain, again, when we're talking about how important communication skills are, whether it's to do with a politician or whether it's to do with just us at home in our families, it's the important skill that potentially some people or a lot of us maybe don't have, and is more visible, if you like, in the political arena with certain people as well.
Okay, thank you very much for calling in. Thank you very much for calling in, Michael. I'm going to wrap up. There's very little time left, so thank you very much for calling, Michael. And hopefully speak to you again soon. Thank you. Bye-bye. Well, Carl, what do you think is missing then? What do you think leaders of today need?
I think very similar to what Michael was doing. If you're listening to what Michael had to say there in regards to certain skills that it's quite obvious to see that other leaders have and some don't have, but that applies then to all of us. So for me, I think fundamentally being able to teach us all a set of basic skills like communication at a school level, if you like, that helps us to move it forward in the long term in our lives. So it becomes as simple as 1 + 1, which people know instinctively is 2. It's obviously a ridiculous question, but in reality, if we were able to do the same thing with communication skills, it would be more instinctive, and we know what to do and say in certain situations.
So what do you think today's leaders need? And if you had a message to politicians, British politicians in particular, what would you say your message would be?
I think it would be to learn to listen, if you like, to learn to hear and reflect what people are saying, to learn a set of skills, I think very similar to what Michael was saying there. That's why I've developed this 6-skill system, this life skill system. It's purely to be able to help leaders be able to understand and how to communicate with the people they represent and so on.
Okay, thank you very much for that. It's been a wonderful discussion. I've enjoyed having you here as a guest. Thank you for that. Hopefully we can invite you back again. We can talk more about your life skills.
That'd be fantastic. Looks forward to it.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that. For those, I'm afraid, who have only just started to listen, that's all we have time for this afternoon. You were listening to me, Barrister Tahir Ashraf, presenting Real Talk on Revive FM. For future references, the studio number is 0333 444 0940. The text-only number is 07851 391 You will be able to catch us in the future on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, Mixlr and TuneIn, as well as revivefm.co.uk. And next time we will discuss other aspects of current issues, current affairs and leadership. So let us have your thoughts. You were listening to me, Barrister Tahir Ashraf, presenting Real Talk on Revive FM. Thank you.
From our hot meze selection to our succulent meat dishes, our food is prepared daily using only the finest ingredients. Find us at 492 High Road, Ilford, IG1 1UE, or call us on 07534 816 255 to book your table now. You can also follow us on Instagram at Colony Ilford. We have ample space for wudu and salah, so don't miss out on this Ramadan offer. The Colony Restaurant, Ilford.
MR Accountants provide a full range of accountancy and taxation services, including annual and management accounts, self-assessment, tax returns, VAT, bookkeeping and payroll services to all different types of businesses. With our in-house chartered accountants, you can be guaranteed to save money. Contact us now on